that the bay mat or the vinyl mat? I don't know. I thought I had it on, but maybe not. I'll walk back here and figure it out. But we'll get started on the table discussion questions and set my timer 15 minutes. We'll dive into the Old Testament.
Aaron, by any chance, do you have another one of these?
Yes.
I'd love one if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. There's some buildings here for you.
All right, roll call.
So do you want to have but I don't even know where my employees are.
What's that? No, it didn't record on Tuesday. Voice? It's all my own voice. No, that's all right. People want to hear you. They want to know I'm not talking to them. Hey, Opa! There it is. Beauty. All right, I'm going to start with a verse. Now, you never quite know where you're going to get some good nuggets of comfort. And this one comes from Deuteronomy 33, 12. He's giving his blessing, Moses is giving his blessing over each of the tribes of Israel. And to Benjamin, he says, about Benjamin, he said, "Let the beloved of the Lord rest secure in him, for he shields him all day long. And the one the Lord loves rests between his shoulders." That's all he says. It's like the shortest one, but I think it's like the best one. You know, it's this idea of, I picture like my own son, you know, just kind of standing in front of me with my arms over him, right? It's, let the beloved of the Lord just rest secure between his shoulders, sort of thing. It's a place of peace and comfort. So I really like that. You know, I've read it before, I guess. I read it this time around, and I just read it a few times, just thinking about that imagery there. And so I really like that, starting off with that one. So we are finishing up the Torah, right? We're going to cover some bits from Deuteronomy, and then we'll be done with the Torah. So, very cool. If we were in a Jewish synagogue, we would be going through the streets of Jerusalem playing loud music and dancing. It's called smikat, or something like that. But yeah, the people who do the Bible Project tell a story about living in Jerusalem and hearing this loud music and these people just like dancing and celebrating, and they went downstairs and they asked, "What's going on?" They say, "So-and-so just finished reading the Torah." And there is a giant party happening. So very cool. All right, so just a few little things. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 8 to 11. "You are not to do as we do here today, everyone doing as they see fit. Since you have not yet reached the resting place and the inheritance the Lord your God has given you. But you will cross the Jordan and settle in the land the Lord your God has given you as an inheritance, and he will give you rest from all your enemies around you, so that you will live in safety. Then to the place the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name, there you are to bring everything I command you. Your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and special gifts, and all the choice possessions you have vowed to the Lord." Look, you can't just offer whatever you want to offer wherever you want to offer it. There's going to be a place. There's going to be a special place where I will choose for my name to dwell. And only in that place are you allowed to offer the sacrifices, make atonement for sin. Only there do I want you to come a few times a year with your family, friends to this place. This place will be Jerusalem. And I feel like God has done this on purpose. Why? Because, well, the Jews are a bit in a conundrum today. They can't offer sacrifices on the Temple Mount at Jerusalem. And according to God, that's the only place it counts. So they can't just set up I live across the street from a Jewish synagogue in Ormond. They can't just set up an altar there and start offering sacrifices. It's not going to count. They can't do it. According to God, it has to be in Jerusalem, at the temple. And currently, right now, there's a mosque where the temple used to stand. And Jews aren't even allowed on the Temple Mount. What are they supposed to do? In fact, they haven't been able to do this. They haven't been able to offer the sacrifices in the temple at Jerusalem since 70 AD, when the Romans came in and destroyed the temple completely. What are they supposed to do? Now, they've created all sorts of loopholes. They've they've said, well, now it's you atone for sin more based on good deeds and things of this nature. But I can't help but feel like God has set this up. He set this up so that they are forced every year to consider their story, what they're doing, how does this work? How is this going to operate? And I feel at some moment, at some point in history, they're going to think back and realize when everything changed. And how it had to do with the rejection of their true Messiah, Jesus. And I think they will come to that realization. I think God is longing for them to come to that realization. But I think part of what this was, of God setting a place for his name, it was, yes, to separate them from the nations around them, but it was also to set up for the future. To set up so that they would think about why all this has taken place and what might be the catalyst. So, little tidbit on that. All right, next thing. Deuteronomy 13, 1-5. If a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears among you and announces to you a sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, let us follow other gods, gods you have not known, and let us worship them, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you. Find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commands and obey him. Serve him and hold fast to him. That prophet or dreamer must be put to death for inciting rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. That prophet or dreamer tried to turn you from the way the Lord your God commanded you to follow. You must purge the evil from among you. Deuteronomy 18, 14-22. The nations you will dispossess, listen to those who practice sorcery or divination. But as for you, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him. For this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die. The Lord said to me, what they say is good. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I commanded him. I will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words that the prophet speaks in my name. But a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, is to be put to death. You may say to yourselves, how can we know when a message has not been spoken by the Lord? If what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Lord does not take place or come true, that is a message the Lord has not spoken. That prophet has spoken presumptuously, so do not be alarmed. Now, there's a lot there. I put a lot there, though, because there's a lot in this section. For one, you can kind of see this call to Jesus, right? In this, I will raise up a prophet from among you. Now, the people are thinking a prophet like Moses. And very eventually, soon after this, right, Joshua comes up, and they will think Joshua is this person. Now, they will say in Joshua, I don't think he's this guy. They will say, Joshua's good. He's not like Moses, though. So there's an anticipation for a prophet who will come out like Moses, right? And so it becomes a very prophetic word in and of itself. But the other reason as well is what we see in these two passages are the tests of a prophet. People are always wanting to know about prophecies and prophets, and people are always, still, to this day, falling for bad prophets. And it drives me up a wall. Because the Bible gives you two tests. You want to know if a prophet is a real prophet or not, including your televangelists? One, what they say must come true. It's one of the tests. That's an easy test. They say something, comes true, maybe, because there's a second test as well. It's possible what they say will come true, but if they lead you towards other gods, if the motivation is incorrect, it's possible They may have bad motivations and still predict a correct prophecy. That's possible. But if they're leading you astray, if you feel it in your soul, there's something not right here. False prophet. And I will tell you, so many have failed this test. And what ends up happening is people will get mad at God. Or they'll start discrediting the Bible. Obviously, well, that's not correct. You know, I think about in 2013, for instance. There was a guy who was predicting the end of the world, as they do. They've always been wrong to this point. Predicting the world, he bought billboards all over the country. People were selling their possessions. They were getting ready for this day. That day comes, that day goes. Nothing. I watched a documentary about it. And they showed like 3 or 4 families who have lost everything because they believed this man. They also lost their faith because what this man said didn't come to pass. They didn't think, maybe, just maybe, the guy was wrong. No, they assumed it was God and the Bible that were mistaken. Clearly, those are the wrong ones. And they lost everything. It breaks my heart to hear stuff like that. Because the Bible's telling you, no, people are wrong. Charles Taze Russell, he's the founder of the Jehovah's Witness movement. Jehovah's Witnesses are still alive and well today. That movement began by a guy proclaiming the end times. And we already said how he was already off on translations. So, the Bible's saying, look, there's going to be people. They're going to seem legit, but they're not. Don't follow them. Don't trust them. And certainly, don't blame God or the Bible when they are wrong. Okay, it's a little bit of a soapbox for me. Be advised for the future. Okay, Deuteronomy 17. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, let us set a king over us like all the nations around us. Be sure to appoint over you a king the Lord your God chooses. He must be from among your fellow Israelites. Do not place a foreigner over you, one who is not an Israelite. The king, moreover, must numbers of horses for himself, or make the people return to Egypt to get more of them. For the Lord has told you, you are not to go back that way again. He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of this law taken from that of the Levitical priest. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to revere the Lord his God and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his fellow Israelites and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel. So God knows at some point they're going to ask for a king. And he gives them these stipulations. Now, does this sound familiar to you? Like, does this sound like a king you might know? No horses from Egypt. Don't take many wives. Don't accumulate a lot of wealth. Solomon. Yes. We have these 3 things. What you will notice is that all 3 of these are highlighted in Solomon's life. What's the Bible saying? Well, a lot of us, I grew up thinking Solomon, great dude, wise dude. The wives thing was a little weird. What the Bible's actually saying is, this might actually be the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the downfall. You see, the Bible isn't supporting this king having many wives. What it's saying is, think about Deuteronomy. It will highlight in Solomon's life him getting horses from Egypt
Why? Because it's reminding you of those verses in Deuteronomy. It's warning you. It's saying, Solomon, he's the beginning of the end. He's the beginning of the decline. It's sobering, quite frankly. I always loved, though, this idea that the king, right, he was supposed to write his own copy of the law alongside the Levitical priests, right? I mean, how significant would that be? Now, there's no record of any king actually doing this, but I think it would change the way you reign. I mean, think about it even in our own context, right? What would happen if our presidents were required to record the Constitution? They'd certainly know what it says. That's helpful. And so you see the emphasis that God is wanting here, right? It's not just these rules, it will change the way you rule your kingdom. Significant. All right, now we're going to do our intro into Joshua. Joshua was written by Joshua. Yep. Now the date is, this is debated. You'll find dates about books being written are always debated. But date I put at 1400 BC. This would be when they enter the Promised Land. It goes between 1400 and 1250, around there, BC. Theme and purpose is the conquest of the Promised Land. And I told you that at some point, right, we were going to talk about war and bloodshed, violence, all those things that people have trouble with in these stories. And so we are going to talk about that, not tonight. We will talk about it next week. So I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those conversations I enjoy talking with people about. It's something people always have questions about. And so we'll dive into that next week. But some movements in Joshua, kind of how it's structured here. You have Joshua 1-5, where he leads Israel. You have chapters 6-12, which are the battles. And there should be a bit of a compare and contrast here. So, you know, we just read about Jericho. You're reading about Ai. You know, compare those two stories. You're going to read about the Gibeonites and I believe the Amorites. You know, those two stories also meant to be compared and things like that. You have the division of land, 13-22, super boring stuff. Not going to like that. And then 23-24, Joshua's final words. A lot of great stuff. You know, you notice in the first few chapters here, even beginning at the end of Deuteronomy with the beginning of Joshua, this constant refrain to be strong and courageous. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. There's a lot of hope there. I love it. You know, my doormat to the entrance of my apartment building says from Joshua 24, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, right? That's always a favorite. And then one of Pete and I's favorites we read today as well, right? It's Joshua, he's coming up to the angel of the Lord, and he says, whose side are you on, us or them? And the angel says, neither. I'm not on either side. I'm with God. God is forever, right? So I really love that. So there's a lot of great stuff in Joshua. Like I said, you will also see where they are anticipating Joshua to be like a Moses. And there's a bit of a letdown. He's not quite like Moses. It's kind of leaving it open. But so you read about in the Battle of Jericho, Rahab the prostitute, this outsider, not even like this person who is highlighted, who we feel like should not be, so early in the Old Testament. This goes against everything. It's a woman of ill repute, and she's an outsider of a culture we're trying to defeat. Yet, what you see in her story, you see a correlation to Passover, I feel like, a little bit here. right? It is the scarlet thread she puts out of the window. Similar in a way, an entryway, an exitway, just like a doorway where they put the blood of the lamb on the doorposts of their house. As long as that scarlet thread was out there that they could see, whoever was in her household was spared from the destruction. They even said, like, if anyone goes outside of your room there, we're not responsible, right? Same sort of idea. As long as the destroyer sees the blood on the doorposts, anyone within the house is safe. It's a callback to Passover, right? And they have even done some excavations. This is my archaeological study Bible. I read a note in there a few days ago. They said they were doing excavations of what they believe is Jericho, and they see this area of the wall that was completely intact with a window and all the things. Very cool. But even still, Rahab will come to play an even bigger role in the biblical story. In Matthew, in the genealogy there, Salmon, great name, father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth, Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. So that makes her like the great-grandmother of King David, and also in the line of Jesus. You don't record female names when you do genealogies. So when Matthew is doing this, it's intentional and it's abnormal. It's intentional because he mentions 4 women in his genealogy. Each of those 4 women have a checkered past. And we've said how Matthew is highlighting the outsider a lot in his gospel. And so what we see here is this prostitute of the Jerichoans, Jerichites, I don't know, becomes an essential part of our story, and part of the line, Jesus, and their great King David. So, very cool. This one is also fun. Is it great? So if you didn't know, Joshua and Jesus, same. Now, not the guy, right? There was a different guy, Joshua and Jesus. But if you look at the names, okay? So let's, if you've never done this before, really cool. Joshua means Yahweh, that's the name of God, right? Yod-He, Vav-He. Yahweh is salvation. That's what Joshua means. Now, Joshua in Hebrew is Yahashua. Now later on, Aramaic will come by, and Aramaic will take that word and they'll shorten it. Just like we do, right? We take Joshua and turn it into Josh. Well, Aramaic does the same sort of thing. They take Yahashua and they turn it into Yeshua. The Greek and Latin will then come around, and the Greek and Latin will translate Yeshua into Jesus, which then in English becomes Jesus. Therefore, Joshua and Jesus, same name. And that's significant. Why? Well, because it is Joshua who leads the people into the promised land, and it's Jesus who leads us into our promised land. Right? And the name itself, right? Yahweh is salvation. Jesus is God in the flesh, and He is our salvation. It's just great. Really great stuff. All right, that's it for the Old Testament. So we'll take 5-10 minutes, and then we'll dive into the New.
stuff is a great story.
I know.
You know, it fits in with when he says, "You will name the angel from Samaria. You will name him Jesus, where he will save his people from the reign."
Oh yeah. No, I just love it. Somebody like threw it out there one time, right? They're like, Jesus, Joshua, I'm like,
Yeah.
but so then why don't we call him Joshua? Why do we say Jesus? And it took me a while to really get all this. It's kind of like how the Jehovah's Witnesses, take that one phrase. They take the phrase and they translate the phrase, which is a reminder phrase that you're supposed to write something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And then it's the it's not even the Hebrew variant, right?
Right.
That's also later when they were changing from the Hebrew to the Greek, I believe. I don't know. I remember looking at it because they're all like, this is his name. This is his name. It's like, no, it's Yahweh.
Right.
Yahweh is his name.
Yeah.
At best.
Silly JW. The Mormons, don't even get me started on those
Yeah.
guys. I don't understand how that kind of stuff works though. Like, how is it that people? I feel like we live in a day and an age where people are so critical of everything. How are they not so critical of something that's seemingly so very flawless or full of flaws?
Yeah, well, the common average Jehovah's Witness doesn't know it's full of flaws.
Well, even so Mormon. I watched a movie.
Yeah.
It was a Mormon movie, and they were on a quest to find the 16 stones that they said God had touched, made light come out of them, and it was in the Book of Mormon that these stones were talking about. It's like, it sounds like crap. How do you believe it?
I think, it's a highly structured, legalistic system. And there are people who do well in that system. There will always be people who seem to do well in a highly structured, legalistic system. Just like there are people who do great as long as they're in jail. As soon as they're out of jail. They're in jail, they're young, a model inmate. Get them out of jail, they're a wreck.
Okay, very good. All right, New Testament time. We're going to jump right in. Luke 11, 17, 20. Jesus knew their thoughts. Okay, so he's healing people, he's casting out demons, he's healing people, and the religious leaders are saying, well, he's only doing that because he is the devil. So this is what Jesus said. Jesus knew their thoughts, said to them, any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall. If Satan is divided against himself, how can his kingdom stand? I say this because you claim that I drive out demons by Beelzebul. Now if I drive out demons by Beelzebul, by whom do your followers drive them out? Whew, mic drop. So then, they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the finger of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. Jesus knows these one-liners to really upset these guys. And this is one of those one-liners. He says, the finger of God. Now there was a common idea in this day and age. They were anticipating the coming of Messiah, the coming kingdom of God. And they would say that there are some markers to measure this. This all goes back to the Exodus. In fact, the first time we read the phrase, finger of God, it's in Exodus chapter 8. When the magicians are trying to reproduce the plagues that Moses is doing, and they reach a point where they can't any longer. The magicians say, this is the finger of God. And so the rabbis and the Jews and all of that had taught, well, you will know when the Messiah comes and the kingdom of God comes, three things will happen. One is that the finger of God will move. There's going to be some incredible signs and wonders. Exactly what Jesus was doing. But that's not all. They say also people will call him Lord. Right? They will realize this is the finger of God. And it won't just stop there. They will call on the name of the Lord. That's exactly what people are doing with Jesus. And not only that, just like in the Exodus story, right? People will respond in obedience. All three of these things had to happen. It couldn't be just one. It had to be all three. I would say the same for us today when it comes to the idea of revival. Right? We all talk about and want revival, and there are many places I feel like that feel like they can manipulate the idea and presence of revival, but the whole is bound up in this idea of God's going to move. Something will happen. But what is the people's response? Will they call on the name of the Lord? Will they see it as being from God? And will they respond in obedience? You think about the revival that just happened at Asbury University. You know, they say that how that happened, it wasn't a special worship night, it wasn't a specific revival emphasis, right? What it was they said it was a pretty typical chapel. Nothing special, really, even. But they said a student stayed after. And the student started to repent. Started to plead about whatever it was that he was encountering, going through. Right? He called on the name of the Lord. His desire was to respond in obedience. Revival happened. And so same thing here. You know, so what Jesus is doing, he knows that this is what they think and believe. He is throwing them the first line. Hey guys, this is the finger of God, and it's moving. The rest is up to you. The rest is up to you. They did not like that. Luke 11:34-36. Your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eyes are healthy, your whole body is also full of light. But when they are unhealthy, your body also is full of darkness. See to it then that the light within you is not darkness. Therefore, if your whole body is full of light and no part of it dark, it will be just light as when a lamp shines its light on you. Now, this is not simply about sight. It's not describing sight when it's talking about good eyes and bad eyes. It's talking about your outlook on life. To say someone has a good or bad eye is to say you have a good or bad outlook on life. We've talked about this before, right? This idea of how do you see things going down? If you believe the world is just going to hell in a handbasket, you just feel like everything is crumbling, it's all falling apart, what's the point? You might have a bad eye. If you think, oh, God is moving, things are happening, the gospel is starting maybe small, but it's growing, it's encompassing the whole earth, we play a part in that. You have a good eye. They'd also say this is a euphemism for your level of generosity or your stinginess. If you're a generous person, you have good eyes. If you're a stingy person, you have bad eyes. So, always something more than what it appears. All right. Now we have this one. Okay, so Luke 14:16-23. Jesus replied, a certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, 'I've just bought a field and I must go and see it. Please excuse me.' Another said, 'I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me.' Still another said, 'I just got married, so I can't come.' The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry, ordered his servant, 'Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town. Bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame.' 'Sir,' the servant said, 'what you ordered has been done, but there is still room.' Then the master told his servant, 'Go out to the roads, country lanes, compel them to come in, so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get a taste of my banquet.'" So, parable, if you remember our parable treatment, do you guys remember the Pardes thing? Okay, I'll refresh your memory a little bit. So this is a technique that the rabbis would use. Now the words themselves were adopted later to identify the technique. But what it was the rabbi would tell you a parable. And you got your initial idea just from hearing the parable. That's called the Peshat, right? What do you get from just hearing the parable? So I'll ask you. You read this parable. What's your thoughts? What does it say? Great banquet. I invited people. They say nay, nay. They give me excuses. I invite the sick, the lame, the crippled, all those. They came in. I said, still, invite more people, invite more people. You hear that parable. What are your initial thoughts about what that is saying? Nice guy. Okay, very good. Nice guy. Anything else? What'd you say? Everybody's welcome. Okay. Yeah. So we can see how Jesus, talking to the religious leaders, right? We've been talking about how this gospel message, it's a Jewish story. It was for the Jews. But so many of them rejected it. And Jesus, he starts opening his message up to Gentiles, the outsiders, right? So you can see that in this parable. And that's a good interpretation. That works. The next part of this is the remez. There's a callback. And I highlight this one because I feel like we just read it in Deuteronomy. You remember in Deuteronomy when it's talking about the call to war? What's it say? The officers shall say to the army, "Has anyone built a new house and not yet begun to live in it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle. Someone else may begin to live in it. Has anyone planted a vineyard?" That was one of them. "And not begun to enjoy it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle. Someone else may enjoy it. Has anyone become pledged to a woman and not married her?" There's another one. "Let him go home, or he may die in battle. Someone else marry her." Then the officers shall add, "Is anyone afraid, faint-hearted? Let him go home, so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too." So, you might be thinking about that as well. The Darash is, okay, your initial reading, your initial understanding, you have the callback. So you put those things together. Again, it's just trying to give you a more full understanding of the parable. The Darash here, I would say, is what seems to be that what Jesus is saying is if you want to go to the banquet, you got to first go to war. Now, I need to clarify, this is not about getting to heaven when you die. But anyone who has walked with Jesus for a time, right? He is calling people in this banquet. You could say this banquet he's calling them to faith in Christ. Could you not say that? Absolutely. And he's calling everyone. The invitation open to everyone. Come on in. But anyone who has walked with Jesus for a time understands he's also calling you to fight a spiritual battle. It's putting on the armor of God, right? It's a call to war. Carry your cross. Put to death the flesh. All these things, these are hard things. These are things that require a fight. Anyone who has been in the war room of prayer understands. Yeah, the call to be a Christian, I mean, yeah, your faith may get you into the doors of heaven. Absolutely. Just a simple statement of faith. But if you walk with Jesus for a time, you know it's much more than that. It's a call to come and die to yourself. It's a call to engage in a spiritual warfare. You know, the banquet is much more sweeter when you've gone through the hardships of life. Right? We understand these concepts. The cheeseburger I had from McDonald's when I had gotten home from a month-long mission trip in Africa was so much better to me. I can't stand them now. But at the time, man, so good. Can anyone get a cheeseburger? Absolutely. But for the one who has fought the battle, the one who has gone to war, and that banquet means a whole lot more. That's what I feel like the parable is saying. I didn't say all that on Tuesday. I should have. All right. And now Jesus goes into the parable of lost things. Now this is fun as well because what you see is you see these two very short little parables. And then you see a very long one. It's the parable of the lost sheep. It's the parable of the lost coin. And then you have the lost son. And what you read in that is that it's a mixed crowd. There's a crowd of sinners and tax collectors, it says, but there's also a crowd of religious leaders and Pharisees. And I feel like Jesus is speaking to both groups, but I feel like in typical Jesus fashion, he is throwing off one group in order to set them up for a greater story. So like I say here, the first two are set up for the last one, if you think about the audience, right? And there's a lot of good things people have gotten from the first two parables, right? The lost sheep, he leaves the 99, goes after the one. Man, that's so good, great stuff. The woman loses the coin, even though she had 9 others, but she's searching frantically for the coin, and people have talked about how much that one coin actually costs, and it's significant, and it's a big deal, and yes, that's all really good. But I think Jesus is setting up his audience for this last one. Because think about it. He's in this mixed room. And he's always trying to get on the Pharisees and all this. He's always trying. I just love that guy. Right? He's always just kind of, right there for him. So anyway, he's starting these parables knowing that they're listening. He goes, hey, all right, I want you to imagine you're a shepherd. Well, what do you think the tax collectors and the Pharisees are doing with that statement? I mean, let's try it for a moment. I want you to think about the dirtiest, most disgusting, debased job you can think of. Don't say it out loud. There might be someone here who has that job. But think about that job you definitely don't want. Oh, gosh, please, not that one. I want you to think about that. I want you to imagine I just said, okay, picture you're that. I mean, I could say whatever I want for the next few sentences. You're thinking about, oh, I can't believe so-and-so. They have to do this, and they're just so disgusting. Oh, my gosh. And then I get done with my parable because it's only like 2 sentences, and you're like, what did he say? I think Jesus is going, imagine you're a shepherd. And they're all like, oh, my gosh, a shepherd. And then he says his thing, and then he goes, okay, imagine you're a woman who, oh, my gosh, a woman? I mean, one of their prayers, literally one of their prayers at the Temple Mount was, thank you, God, you haven't made me a woman. It's in the scriptures. What? So they're just caught up in the things Jesus is saying. He's already blown through the parables. And now he says, okay, now I've got one for all of you. And he goes into this parable of the lost son. And instead of read it, because it's a lot, I just want to tell it to you like a story, right? There's this guy I listen to. I have no idea what he's saying. He's a rabbi from Brooklyn. And he has the best accent. And I just wish I could tell this story in that accent. I'm not going to. But I just picture him as he's saying. But anyway, if Jesus is telling this story, right, he's saying, okay. Imagine a guy has 2 sons. Now, if you're a Jew, you're probably already thinking, all right, maybe Cain and Abel, maybe Jacob and Esau. You could start to see some elements in the story of that. But, okay, so a guy has 2 sons, right? The younger son, he lives on a farm. This guy, he's got his 2 sons. They're helping him out. They're helping him take care of the place. Well, his younger son says, hey, Dad, I'm done with this country boy life. Screw you. Give me my money. I'm going to the city. I'm going to be a big star. See my name in lights. I'm going to make it big. So just give me my money. I wish you were dead. That is the equivalent of what the younger son says to his father. I wish you were dead. Give me my money. So the father does it. The son goes. He wastes his money on all sorts of wild living. Squanders it away. Meanwhile, the older son, the older son would probably be telling this story and he'd be, I can't believe it. My dad, such a fool. This guy gets told out by this no-name kid, right? And he's out there, and he's on the porch every single night waiting for this kid to come home. I say, Dad, he's dead. He should be dead to you. Right? What has he done for you? He's done nothing but insult you. But every night, Dad's out there on the porch, just waiting for this selfish brat to come. He's not even doing his work on the farm. I've got to pick up more, all this stuff. Just, I don't get it. Lo and behold, that boy comes back. And I was waiting for Dad to give him a new one. What's he do, though? Makes a complete fool of himself. He runs after that boy. He runs after him. He wraps his arms around him. He gives him a new robe. He gives him sandals for his feet. He acts like nothing ever happened. I said, Dad, what are you doing? This kid wants nothing to do with you. The only reason he's here is because he ran out of money. I've been on this farm this whole time, helping you. You haven't even given me a goat to celebrate with my friends. And what the father said has always struck me here. Because personally, I've always related to the older son. Because this